Hello, everybody. This is Jordi. I am the director in the Master of Digital Transformational Leadership at BTS. And to me, it's an honor today to host this interview with Alex Rodriguez. Alex, how are you?
Hey, Jordi, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure. I can say that I consider Alex a friend, but I also admire his career. Alex, you remember that we had to decide a title for this session. So, with a bit of help of generative AI, we ended up with this name. It's Innovating the Future, AI Transformation and Beyond. But at the end, I would like to do today is to review a bit your career, your experience, because you have such an let's say, astonishing career in the field of research, in the field of innovation, in the field of entrepreneurship, and so on. So I would like to cover your career, cover some topics, make a bit of fun also about technology. So I will ask some tricky questions. So it's about also having fun and play, and also link our session with the Master Digital Transformation and the kind of content that we deliver and we cover every year in this master course. So, Alex, thank you again to have this chat with us. By the way, where are you now? Where are you located?
Right now, I'm in the United States, near New York.
Near New York, okay.
Yes.
But it's temporary, or how long are you planning to stay there?
I don't know. I think it's
You know.
temporary. I'm
Okay,
from
but you
Barcelona originally, as you know.
yeah, but you're half American, right? Or something like that, or you've lived quite a long time in America.
That's right. I have some family that's from the United States, and I have some family that's from Spain, and so I've lived kind of my life in both countries. And I've
Okay.
been I've been lucky enough to get a little bit of the best of both worlds, hopefully.
Good, good. Alex, so I would like you to start telling us a bit more about you, right? So a briefly share of your, for instance, career journey, right? So I would like to tell us a bit so we can know Alex a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. First of all, getting used to just speaking to you, even though we're live streaming somewhere else, is a bit strange. So I'm just going to pretend like it's a conversation
This is the
amongst
point.
friends.
This is our approach, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Streaming sessions and this kind of podcasting is like having a chat in a bar, okay, with a friend.
yeah, completely. It's like they call them parasocial relationships.
Yeah,
This whole idea of when you listen to podcasts all the time and you feel like you're friends with the podcaster, but the podcaster doesn't know you at all. Now it's kind of like the opposite way around, right? But on a much
exactly.
smaller scale.
Exactly.
Um, so my name's Alex Rodriguez. I was born in Barcelona, Spain. I've lived most of my life there. And I think really that instead of just like going through what I've done in my life, I think maybe my underlying passion is what's most interesting. Um, I think really my underlying passion for most of my life, which has dictated everything I've done up until this exact moment, is two things. It's trying to understand how the universe works and how everything works, I guess, in a sense, which is like a ridiculous thing to try to attain. It's like it's impossible, right? But at least trying to start to understand how most things work. And then understanding how I can do something for our planet, or how I can make um God, it's like been used so many times, right? But like, how do you make the world a better place? Or just simply, how do you do something on this planet that leaves it a little bit better after you've left? So I think both of those passions together have turned into me always trying to pursue, through the use of science and technology, the understanding of how I, in the smallest way possible, can help humanity. So it all started from a background in physics, which at the moment I thought was going to be the thing that was going to help me most understand the universe, but it just complicated things even more. Um, and then
So
I ended up working.
the more you
Yeah,
know, the more confused you are, right? Because you are
I
aware
guess you.
about everything you don't know.
I guess you could say that. I mean, there's a saying in there's a saying in quantum physics that is, if somebody tells you that they understand quantum physics, it means that they don't understand quantum physics, because it's so complicated that it's a crazy whole world. But it was a really interesting way to start my career. because it did give me the tools to be able to piece together rationality and the understanding is how different systems in the universe work, right? And when I talk about systems, I just mean like the interconnected workings of whatever complex relationships can exist between anything, right? So that can be systems of humans, or it can be train systems, or it can be planetary systems, right? So for me, understanding of these systems has always been super interesting of how can I understand the intercorrelation, because that's going to help me understand better where the opportunities for growth and change are, right? So throughout my life, as I moved on from this, right, I had a short career in engineering. I worked a little bit in aerospace, and then I moved on to working for these big innovation companies where we were working on things like moonshots, right? Which I think we might talk about a little bit later, but it's these
Yeah,
like big,
sure.
crazy ideas. And really just the idea of how can we leverage technology in an innovative way to kind of create impact in our planet. And I think something really important here to say, because it ties into digital transformation and a little bit what we might talk about later, is for me, the entire core of how to solve all these problems and digital transformation and kind of the tenets of my life is truly trying to understand the interconnectedness and these kind of systems of how everything works, because that's going to be the easiest way that we're going to be able to understand the core issues, so we can try to kind of apply a technology as a patch to try to improve that, right? And so that correlates maybe with a little bit of digital transformation, which I'll leave it to you to go, but a little bit that's me.
Okay, Alex, you studied physics, as you mentioned. Like, for instance, many people that now is in the news, like Elon Musk, but also like Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am
Yeah,
only passionately curious." So,
right.
do you feel familiar also with this quotation?
First of all, I feel extremely inferior to being compared to Albert Einstein,
Hopefully,
but
hopefully.
but okay, but yes, I think it's a great tenet, and I think it's a poster that I used to have in my room when I was younger and studying physics. So I definitely correlate with it, although I definitely cannot be compared even in the smallest fraction of the percentage to this man. But yes, I
Yeah.
think it's a beautiful way, and I think all humans should approach life a little bit with that bit of curiosity.
Yeah, but curiosity is something that you can train, do you think, or is just comes by default?
That's a
At
great
least
question.
according to your experience, or your feelings.
It's it's probably kind of the same question as can you train creativity, right? Like I think that's
Mhm.
probably the same. It's the same type of question. I think you can train curiosity. Do you mean in general as young children, or do you mean as older people?
Maybe as professionals, let's say, just to settle a more narrow scope.
In the end, I honestly think that it's the same. I think that we can train anything by small increments, and I think that it's very hard to um, it can be hard to train curiosity depending on how fixated the person that you're, or how fixated in a certain way that person that you're trying, or that group of people you're trying to train is. In the end, curiosity means that you're leaving the established path, and we all know how complicated it can be to help somebody leave the established path, especially if there's a certain comfort or if there's a certain way of doing things. And I've done this for 40 years and there's no reason to change. And it's funny because 10 years ago, I would give innovation talks and I would be starry eyed and say, oh, you just have to be more creative and you have to break barriers. And now, 10 years after, I realize with age, it's completely true that as human beings, it's just a physiological reality that we become more trapped in the ways that we do things, right? So, what I
Mhm.
used to think was some person saying, I've done this for 30 years and I'm not going to change. And I thought, what are you saying? Now I kind of understand it. But I still believe that through small increments, it's able to train anything, right? So curiosity is usually trained through play, and it's usually trained through giving a reward for that curiosity, right?
Mhm.
So when we're talking about these professional environments, and this is something that I remember speaking about during the master's degree of digital transformation.
Yeah, because you were, I didn't say it, but you were a teacher of and digital transformation subject also.
That's right, I tried, yes. But I think one of the important things that you're always dealing with is resistance. You're dealing with the resistance if you're entering as a consultant or if you're entering as a digital transformation professional, you're always going to deal with resistance to change, right? And so your job, in addition to being updated on all the best technologies, in addition to understanding the needs of businesses, et cetera, is it's almost a psychological game. It's almost as a therapist, right? Because you need to understand how to translate something that you know is best for this company, so say digital transformation, into something that's easily adapted and used by that company or the directives in the company or the people that are actually, you know, working. So the same thing comes for curiosity, right? It's that idea of, okay, big companies don't usually have incentives for creativity or curiosity. So in the end, it just turns out that it's incentive based, right? And for me, that's the easiest way to do it, is doing something incentive based and just little by little and allowing that little bit of space for play. So sorry, it's a long answer, but
No. But it was very clear, Alex. Thank you. Honestly, to me, the most exciting part and the one that I have more curiosity about is your knowledge and your approach to moonshot innovation. And you have helped companies from many sides, from the corporation, even in World Economic Forum, and so on. But before we tackle this part, and since as I remember our audience, these talks is in the framework of BTS, but also in the framework of the Master in Digital Transformation. I would like you to tell us a bit more about your experience in digital transformation, and especially how would you define digital transformation, or what does it mean to you personally and maybe even professionally?
okay. So I've always had a hard time defining digital transformation because I do think it's a bit of a buzzword. But for me, the way that if somebody asks me what it is, the first thing that I answer is it's not about asking, how do I apply technology to this? That's for me, like I could end my answer like that. So for me, that's the most important thing, because that's the first thing that people are going to say is they're going to take the spinning wheel of all the new technologies that I don't even have to mention, right? Like AI, blockchain, whatever. And they're going to take their problem and they're going to go, and they're going to be like, oh, AI, that, right? And that's kind of like the general idea. And for me, digital transformation is kind of the opposite of that. It's actually the other way around. So I'm going to repeat myself a lot because I like through this next whole thing that we're going to be talking about. But for me, digital transformation is about understanding the kernel, so the seed of the issue that we're trying to solve. It requires asking hard questions. So that's why I was saying, for all these students or professionals that are looking to get into this, it not only requires understanding the technology, but it's almost like this savvy, like business, kind of like psychology, in a sense of, for me, it requires asking the right questions. It requires doing SWOT analysis and pestle analysis and understanding what the issue is, what the why is, like Simon Sinek said, right? What the core of the technology, or sorry, of the problem is. And then technology is just there to help us improve what this actual core issue is, right? So it isn't the other way around. So for me, it's almost about understanding these underlying processes, right? It's about understanding human needs and identifying these inefficiencies with the system that already exists and rethinking how we can leverage technology. So technology in the end is secondary, and primary is understanding, right? Like what the problem is. So it's about finding that balance between technology and kind of the human part, not the other way around.
Actually, I fully agree with your approach, Alex. What we are saying, according also to my experience, I've met many CEOs in my career also, saying, okay, now the buzzword is 5G, for instance. So I'm looking for problems where I can use 5G in order to solve them. right?
Yeah.
And it's exactly as you mentioned, we start digital transformation with a business question, not with a technology question. Technology will come at the end, so we need to be proficient to understand what, let's say, set of tools or of technologies we can use eventually to solve certain business issues. But first of all, we need to start with a business question. You know, there is a quotation, I think it's very easy. They say, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But it shouldn't be. So if I have AI, now I'm looking to problems to be solved with AI, and maybe I don't necessarily need AI, right? So fully agree with you, Alex. As I told you, we have to do a bit of fun also. So I would like to insert some short games related to our topic of discussion today, right? So the first one, I call it Rank the Future, okay? So, okay, do you want to play this game? It's a ranking game, okay?
Let's do it.
I will name 5 emerging technologies, okay? 5 emerging technologies, and you will rank them from 1 to 5, based on the potential impact do you think that they will have on digital transformation in the, let's say, next decade, okay? To make it a bit midterm, okay, analysis. And of course, you have to defend a bit the ranking, okay? But you have to be a bit agile, okay? So I named the 5 technologies. The first one is AI. The second, I name all and then you rank, okay? The second, I would say blockchain, of course. We have, blockchain was in the hype maybe in 2015, 16, but still maybe rings you a bell, right? Quantum computing, because you have certain also experience there. Metaverse, that was in the hype of Gartner, maybe in 2022, something like that. And robotics. That we somehow we can consider robotics as the physical shape of AI, but let's treat robotics as a separate technology as AI, right? So, so some AI, blockchain, quantum computing, metaverse, and robotics. So please rank them according to the expected impact.
It's the classic. Yes, I got it. So this goes for all my answers that have to do with AI. First of all, I'm not an expert. I'm just an interested person. And I will say that I have been playing with AI for a long time ago, since it became more consumer. I started there, but I think that AI can't even be ranked. And in fact, it's not even, AI is passing from being a tool to a collaborator, right? And it's senseless to rank it. And I don't work with AI, but it's going to evolve regardless, and it's going to be huge already regardless. I mean, it's one of these crazy things where I don't need to be a futurist to understand that AI is going to be huge, because it's already proven it, right? The way that I think, the way that I write, the way that people write school things, the way that absolutely everything works, the pictures that are coming out, the movies that are being edited, it's all AI. So it's already proven itself. So for me, I don't even need to talk about AI in the sense of it's just becoming part of our reality. And it's obviously going to be the highest impact, because it's just the craziest thing we've already seen. And the other thing is, you're talking about 10 years, but 3 years ago, nobody even knew like what AI was, aside from people that were talking about AI or working with AI, right? So the idea that AI is like probably going to be crazy in the next 3 years instead of 10 years is probably right. And I don't have any right to evaluate AI, because I think that it's just pervasive. It's going to happen, and it's happening whether we want it or not. So yes, it's probably top 5, and that's it. But for me, it's completely outside of the ranking. It's a
so
different
this is
thing.
out of
Technology.
As the French says, it's horse category. So it's out of category, right? To you,
It's out of
AI.
category, yeah, because it's yes, it's a technology, but it's not even a technology. It's a reality. It's what's happening. So
okay, so let's play with the other ones: quantum, blockchain,
so,
metaverse, and robotics.
So for me, the ones that have the most interesting potential aspects of like world changing is definitely quantum computing and blockchain. Blockchain for the simple fact of, I know that it got really famous because of crypto and blah blah blah, and it's going to get more famous again because everything goes in cycles, just like the economy. But for me, the interesting thing about blockchain is just traceability, and it's about being able, I really like the idea of a future of democracy, maybe say, imagine where voting is microtransactions, and it's all through the blockchain, and all these things are clear. So in an age where everything is really hard to understand what is real and what isn't, right? Like we're coming to an age where reality is like being put into question, right? The blockchain is not being put into question. From the way that we're being manipulated, or simply that the way that we receive information, to the fact that AI is manipulating us or has the ability to manipulate us, from both ends, we're getting manipulated from reality, right? And I think one of the abilities that blockchain has is to set reality straight, right? It's an axiom. It's immutable. It means that it is true. And so I think that this has tremendous potential, and people will talk about banking and blah, 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 blah. And I agree. But I think one of the coolest things is to be able to kind of make sure that reality is reality, right? Be that by using smart contracts, or putting certain important documents on the blockchain, or using certain transactions, as I said, like voting or making bigger decisions, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's going to be huge for me. If AI was a 5, that's a 4. Quantum computing is also a really big one. I think it's also going to be probably, honestly, I'm saying a 4, but the reality is that when the first solution in quantum computing comes out, it's definitely going to be a 5, because the reality of quantum computing is that it's not just better computing. It's not just faster. It's not 100 times faster, 100 times better. It's a complete paradigm shift, which means that we're going to be able to compute things that we could never fathom, right? We're going to be able to create new molecules, possibly, or all these crazy, amazing things that were never even thought of, right? So when you think quantum, don't think quantum cryptography, or don't think, I'm going to have super faster computers. It's, I'm going to be able to do things on a level that even my human brain can't do, right? And so that's incredible, and that has tremendous potential. So that's definitely a 4, right? And so that, I'm just going to say, for the essence of time, I think the metaverse is awesome. I think that for the first 10 years, it's going to be more of a fun thing, right? Maybe a Ready Player One type experience, right? And I'm sure that a lot of learning, like, we're in the metaverse, right? So I'm sure a lot of learning in one way or another is going to go on through the metaverse, but I'm going to go ahead and say 3. And robotics, I'm going to throw it a 3 too, just because I'm sure it's going to be useful. But
Okay, but at the end, you are a believer of all those technologies, right?
I'm a believer that they're going to happen. And I'm a believer that whether I want it or not, they're going to advance. So I am a believer that I try to make the best that I can in my predictions, or the way that I kind of view the future from these technologies. Yeah. Even though I don't work directly with robotics, or I don't work directly with AI, right? But like, I'm trying to always see like the positive aspects of it in the future.
Okay, Alex, now I would like to play another game, but this one has to be very short, because you only have to answer with one word. You have to say hot or hype, okay? So I name a technology. I will name 5 technologies that we actually cover and discuss, and we actually cover in the master, in the curriculum of digital transformation, right?
Yeah.
And you have to say only hot, so if you think they will make a difference, or hype if you think that they are overrated, okay? Some already discussed with you, some didn't. So I start with Web3.
So I
Only one answer. I'm sorry, we don't have time. Only hot or hype, because
hype.
I go for hype also with Web3.
Yeah.
Metaverse.
Hype.
NFTs.
Hype.
IoT.
Hype.
Okay, I would have said in IoT maybe rather hot. And data analytics.
I guess, like, in general, or in this context of the future?
No. In general,
I'm
in
going to say hot.
businesses.
I'm going to say hot. I'm going to say
Hot,
hot.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Agree with you.
You
Okay.
put me in a very complicated
I
position,
know,
Jordi.
but this is the point. This is the funny part of the game. So let's go back. Let's go back to your career. If I suggest the audience to check the LinkedIn account, the LinkedIn profile of Alex, because it is very interesting. And one of the things he has done is to found its own consulting firm. On top of this, he's been part of World Economic Forum advisory groups and so on. So from there, you have also leveraged innovation, and you foresight somehow to drive business strategies. So I go with a very concrete question is, could you share a single example where your predictions, whether it was in your consultancy firm, whether it was in World Economic Forum role as an advisor, your predictions were significantly impacted a business decision, for instance? So yeah.
Okay. So, of course, I would want to say that my predictions always impact something, but the reality is my predictions are based on many factors. So in the reality, it's not like me with a crystal ball using my magic to predict, right? In the end, it's like I want to attribute less to me, and I just more build the path and show the path, right? So I say, this is what I think based on this, and this, right? And then whoever I present it to makes those decisions based on that. It's not like a crazy, like magician's prediction, right? So taking a little bit of that off myself. But I mean, I guess it's a lot of the examples are really boring a lot of time, but I guess I could connect something that we were talking about quantum computing before, and maybe I can find a way to tie it into what I was saying about digital transformation. Um, is as you said, um, as you said before, yes, I've had some roles with some groups inside of World Economic Forum that were helping us try to understand the future of certain aspects, right? And what applications those things would have. So it was interesting because in this case, I was put inside a group that was working on quantum computing, right? And I'm not necessarily an expert or wasn't an expert in that moment, but I do a lot of work with this futurism and understanding technologies and blah, blah, blah. So in this case, it's funny because we were forced to do the opposite of what I said digital transformation is about, right? We were given the technology and then we were told, okay, like what can you do with this technology? But our first thing was, okay, let's reverse it, right? Let's go back again to kind of like the principal tenets of what we both believe digital transformation is, and okay, what are the problems that exist in the world, right? And so then from that point, then we did together, myself and there was a couple other futurists and subject matter experts and real deal quantum computational specialists, kind of thought of, okay, what is the future going to look like? What are all the possible outlooks that something could be negative, and how could we try to, what are the biggest issues in the future, right? And so then once we discover the biggest issues in the future, one of them was obviously the environment, sustainability, carbon or CO2 or all this kind of stuff, right? And so once we'd arrive, I'm being super short,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
but
of course.
this is a whole predictive process and try to arrive in the right way. So by the time that we got there, we knew exactly what the problems were going to be. Anyway, long story short, at that point, we think, okay, so what technologies can we use to solve this issue? And obviously, one of the technologies that we can use is quantum computing, right? And the whole idea with quantum computing, and this ties a little bit to what we were saying before, is that one of the biggest things with quantum computing is that we're going to be able to hopefully custom design molecules that are going to be able to capture carbon dioxide. Just like a tree is able to capture carbon dioxide, it's possible that with quantum computing, which is something that we would have never been able to do before, we'll be able to engineer these molecules to do that, to be able to reduce the environmental impact, blah, blah. So that was a really long
Okay.
answer, but kind
And
of going
Alex,
around and
I know,
connecting
but
everything.
this is amazing, I think, and this let's say paves the way to the next topic is moonshot thinking. But before that, I would like to ask you for a straightforward question regarding to that, to those molecules that will help us to capture the CO2, right? So, how far we are from there?
Again, so just for the audience, I'm no expert. I was working
Yeah,
with a bunch of
yeah.
intelligent, incredible people. How far are we from that? So from making the actual molecule, I'm going to say we're within the decade. Um, that's just like off the top of my head. There's a lot of quantum computers already exist.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of experiments already going on with quantum computers, and they're dealing with a bunch of other different types of problems. And quantum computers are getting much better by the day, from how they're cooled to how they're engineered to the type of instructions that are being given to it. So again, I'm not an expert. I would say that we are in the process of quantum computing exists. It's happening. It's there. There's in Barcelona. There's like everywhere around the world. There's doing quantum computings. A lot of money is being put into quantum computing. So I would say that the first like working with quantum computing for a bunch of other reasons is happening right now. We have yet to use it for something so big as what I said, but I'm going to say my prediction based on this question and no thinking at all, I'm going to say that within the next 10 to 15 years, maybe we'll have something. So I'm going to say 10 years, we'll have maybe something similar to what I
Okay,
was saying
okay, okay,
before.
okay. So I see you're a tech optimist somehow, right? So you believe that technology will help us to make an impact, of course, and to have even a better quality of life, right? And out of your curiosity, you were talking about quantum computers. Yes, in Barcelona we have one, and actually this very same week, the students of BTS paid a visit to Barcelona Supercomputing Center, which is one of the most powerful computers in Europe. It's called Mare Nostrum number 5. But on top of it, they recently unveiled, or they're about to unveil, a new quantum computer also within this research center. So the future,
Wow.
as you mentioned, is already here, right? So we somehow is also the present. Alex,
Completely.
I remember,
Sorry.
yeah,
Let me just say one thing to you, because you said something that was really interesting.
yeah,
Is
please.
you said that I'm a tech optimist, and I just wanted to share that for me, like my guiding principle is I think that as human beings, we've already evolved technology, right? We're very far, as much as the idea of living how we used to live and more close to nature is wonderful, and I love it. We've already evolved with technology, and because of our evolution with technology, it's true, Jordan, we've kind of destroyed certain things, or we've made things worse, right? And so I think my idea always is, okay, how can I be part of turning that around? How can I be part of maybe reversing some of the damage that we've done because of our exponential growth of understanding and learning about technology, right? So that's why I'm kind of a tech optimist.
Okay, maybe it's because you're American influence, because somehow, and this is a personal feeling, it's true that recently, and especially in Europe, we raise a lot of awareness about the risks of technology, right? And
Mhm.
for sure with good faith, right? So we want to protect people of those risks. We want to empower people. We want to give people rights, so that we want them to own their data. We want
Mhm.
them to have privacy, and so on and so on. But somehow, or the general perception is that somehow this approach of, let's say, human-centric approach of technology damaged a bit the European capacity for innovation, right? Do you see
Mhm.
a difference? Do you see a difference between the American way of innovation and the European way of innovation?
It's a huge, I mean, man, it's a huge
Yeah,
question.
I
And
know, I know.
listen,
Just 1 minute answer, so short answer. Yeah, it's
yeah, no,
clear. It is.
it's a huge question, and I prefer privacy, and I think that the way that Europe is doing things is what makes me most comfortable. But it's true that a lot of times, obviously, this hinders progress. You have like ultra capitalism, right, in the United States, with no progress being stopped in any sense, and we have over here in Europe, we're trying to kind of like protect ourselves a little bit, right? So I'm all for protection, and in fact, like if it was for me, I wouldn't have a phone, right? Like I like the idea of living more simply, but I'm just trying to also be realistic and live adapted. And just the same as I think that a lot of these things are like Pandora's box. And so I try to see everything like Pandora's box. And I don't want to be part of the problem, but I want to be able to turn that problem around into a solution, right? So you can't start talking about regulation for AI because it's Pandora's box, because somewhere around the world, somebody's going to work on it. Unless you get everybody to like promise that we're not going to do this with AI, it's not going to stop, right? And so for me, technological innovation, whether it be positive or destructive, is going to happen. And everything else is wishful thinking. So for me, the best thing that we can do is try to be part of that solution in a sense.
Super interesting, Alex. I was about to say regarding this moonshot thinking, that the first time I met you, I went to pay a visit to an event in Telefonica Alpha. Telefonica, just for curiosity of the audience, is the main telecommunication operator in Spain and Latin America, probably one of the largest companies in Spain, and has over 100 years of history. But they decided to settle in Barcelona, in this case, some sort of a R&D team. You will tell us what you can tell, because there were some also disclosure agreements there and so on, right? But and there, a telecommunication company, so this links a lot with digital transformation. So a company this supposed to just provide communication services to companies, to individuals, and so on, was reshaping the future, right? And I went there, I paid a visit. You were talking also about exponential growth, I remember. And I would like you to tell us a bit more about your experience there. What is to you moonshot thinking? And if you can name at least the kind of projects you were involved in.
Okay. So I think that moonshot thinking is, so really in summation, there's a definition for it. So I'll give the definition for it. Again, I'm no expert. I've just did it for some time, but moonshot thinking is any problem, or sorry, moonshot thinking is trying to solve a large problem with various methods, right? From like social methods to technological or scientific methods that's going to affect over 1 billion people, right? Or 1 billion people or 100 million people. I don't remember right now. It's one of those, it's one of these
Probably
large
1
numbers.
billion, probably 1 billion.
So the idea is simply it's large scale thinking of solving a problem, right? And the idea is trying to use like high level of innovation, outside of the box thinking to solve a problem, right? And so that's kind of the idea. It's there is depending on who you're doing it with, what, right? There can be an altruistic nature to it, but usually the idea is bringing a more positive impact to the planet on a really, really large scale using some unprecedented and really like large or innovative kind of idea or thought, right? So that's the principal tenet of a moonshot. And while I don't know if I can give examples of what I worked on, it's very clear that there's another big company that was working on moonshots, which is Google X, and their moonshots, a lot of them are all public. And so very clearly, like one of the moonshots that they started to work on was the first iteration of something that now everybody has is Starlink, right? But the idea was bringing internet to everybody, right? And I don't remember, I think the project was called Project Loon. You have to remember, this is a long time ago. Now we have
Yeah,
Starlink and Elon
yeah,
has
and it's very,
satellite.
it's
But
democratized.
yeah, but the whole idea initially was creating these big aerostatic balloons with
Mhm.
internet being emitted that could
Yeah.
be sent over areas that were rural or didn't have connection to internet. And then by simply going up and down, these
Mhm.
balloons would be able to use the currents of the upper atmosphere to
Mhm.
serve internet
Mhm.
to all these places that don't have it. Now, 20 years ago, giving internet to somebody is a nice to have. Now, giving internet to somebody can, I mean, sometimes I'm sure it could even be life and death, but without exaggerating, it's huge, right? I don't need to explain how bringing internet to people that don't have internet is a
Makes the
moonshot, right?
difference. Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
an idea of a moonshot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I think it's Airbus, the European company, not only for aircraft, but also for satellite and so on, is working in, I would say, drones, somehow of drones to provide connectivity, which
Mm,
is a bit linked to this balloon example that you
yeah,
shared.
yeah.
Let me launch you a challenge regarding moonshots, okay?
Mhm,
Imagine that you had unlimited resources, okay, for one moonshot. Okay, for one moonshot project today, but you had
yeah,
unlimited, so don't care about resources.
yeah.
What would you be your goal, your pursuit, and why?
I mean, oh, that's kind of a rough one to just ask like that. But I think for me, one of the biggest problems is okay. I'll be cold and statistical, or not cold and statistical. I'll just be pragmatic about it. I think the leading cause of death in our on our planet is water. So I would say that if I could do anything and I had a team and I had infinite money, it would be leading a moonshot for healthier water, right? Or cleaner water or access to water. Because just statistically, I think it is the highest cause of death in the world is polluted water or
Mhm.
restrictions to water. So that would be my moonshot.
Okay, Alex. By the way, thank you for your answer. I would like to remind the audience that they can also share questions with us. We already have a couple of questions. So maybe I will share with you, Alex, and then we
Okay.
can keep with the conversation if we have time, okay? The first one would be regarding, literally, I read, what do you think about cybersecurity as an emerging tech field?
Okay. I mean, I don't think that it's I don't again, not an expert,
Uh,
right? I don't think that it's as impactful maybe as the other ones that we've talked about, but I think that cybersecurity is obviously super important as everybody has noticed as we transition from a paper-based world to a digital world and as everything becomes much more private or much more decentralized, we're seeing a lot of scams actually occurring, right? And a lot of money is being lost. I think like the number was like $3 billion a unit of time. I don't remember if it was a day or a month or a year or something are being scammed every day. So just from that simple point of view, But the reality is that within companies, there is the newest type of espionage. The biggest war that's occurring is a cyber war, right? So it's much bigger than the wars that are occurring with people on the ground, and it's much bigger than like all the type of spies that we free from James Bond movies. It's all cybersecurity, and billions and billions of euros are being stolen in intellectual property or are being risked, and that's not only money, right? So like we can see that
And it's
cybersecurity is
reputation
important
also.
from,
It's about reputation.
it's about reputation, it's about safety, it's about the fact that there's so much technology that's able to access who we are, where we are, what our data is. I mean, look at all these like 23andMe data breach, right? People got their DNA sequence thinking, hey, this is going to be great for me, and then 23andMe got a data breach, and so now all that DNA is out, right? So as more of these digital platforms happen, obviously we're going to have to protect our own privacy. So yes, I obviously think cybersecurity is
It's
important.
very interesting question. Actually, cybersecurity is one of the subjects of digital transformation master course.
Mhm.
And according to our data, companies didn't invest proportionally in digital transformation comparing with cybersecurity. So they invest way more in digital transformation. So in establish their technology, in connecting all their, let's say, assets, value chain, business model, and so on, but they do not protect this technology proportionally. So as long as the company is more connected, also is more, let's say, at risk of cyber hacking,
Exactly.
right? So
Exactly.
and of course, new technologies like quantum technologies could also have a two sides, let's say, impact in cybersecurity. On the one hand, maybe they can secure, you were mentioning, they can secure telecommunications and so on. But so depending on how we use this quantum technology, eventually they could be used in order to maybe crack passwords and this kind of, let's say, well, cyber attacks that might be maybe accelerated with quantum computing too.
Yeah, so I, again, not an expert, and when I would talk about experts, there a lot of times they're not interested in that because that's the most typical thing. But in the end, everything becomes nuclear, right? It becomes the game of cat and mouse. It becomes somebody does this, somebody does this. So it's always like when you have these high technologies, everything adapts, right? So it's not like a technology goes up and then everything stays down here. If a technology exists, everything comes up here, right? So it's not like if all the kids in school are using ChatGPT to write their essays, there's not going to be one kid not, or like 10 kids not doing it, right? Everybody is doing it. So once the technology emerges, we all rise to the occasion to be part of that technology.
Fully agree with you. Alex, there was another question. It's just they want us to clarify the top 5 technologies again. I would say instead of just following the ones I suggested to you, could you name the top 5 technologies that will make most difference?
Okay. So obviously, as I said before, AI for me is a non-contender, meaning it's happening and I'm not an expert and I just know how impactful it is. For me, something that's really hot right now, but it doesn't get maybe it doesn't get the support that it's needed, I guess, maybe in media or whatever, is the world of biotechnology, right? Or health, or simply, let's call it health, right? The new wave of, for me, health and how we're going to approach our own biologies, for me, is like we're on the breakthrough. So back in the 1930s, the most interesting science was physics, right? Because we were still understanding, plus it was the nuclear bomb and all these things that are happening, right? And so it was physics. But now the most exciting science is biology, because we're finally able to understand our own bodies and how we work. And we are the most important thing for ourselves, right? I mean, that's just like rationally how it is. And so biotechnology is all these advancements in medicine, in longevity, right? So we're seeing these huge advancements, and longevity is really a big part of the zeitgeist, right? All these influencers are getting really important because they're trying to live to be 120 years old and blah, 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 all these things. And while I don't promote kind of like trying to live too long or using all these crazy things, I think that this idea of the evolution of biotechnology, of being able to heal ourselves more, of being able to cure stronger diseases based on gene therapies and all these incredible things, I think for me, that's one of the most interesting technologies that is occurring right now. And that's happening from a technological perspective, from it's just happening from a technological perspective, from like, so even using AI to diagnose, like lung cancer, right? That's a huge one. And it's happening from a biological perspective, right? So like understanding new molecules or discovering new molecules. So for me, that's like one of the most interesting things that's occurring right now. I would say second is, again, addressing problems that are for me, the most important thing is for our planet to be able to continue existing, right? And for us not to extinguish ourselves as a human race. So for me, something really important is this whole idea of green technology, right? Or green tech. How do we create technology, or how do we advance science to protect our planet from kind of the things that we might have created, or possibly not? Maybe it's just the natural evolution of the earth, but how do we kind of like try to undo some of the damage, right? So there's tremendous like advancements occurring in green technology. For instance, biofuels, right? Biofuels are so interesting. Nobody's really talking about it because blockchain and AI are so much more interesting and they are so much more impactful. But sometimes the smallest things like algae-based fuels or algae-based carbon capture or algae-based energy creation is super interesting, right? The idea of distancing ourselves from fossil fuels and starting to work with these more greener fuels is just something really cool. So for me, those are the two technologies or the two kind of tendencies that we haven't talked about before, right? I think all the
Exactly.
ones we talked about before are
Yeah,
equally as important, but
I
these are the ones that
understand.
are really interesting to me.
Yeah. So super interesting. So you're merging somehow technology with a given societal problem or societal challenge or even a vertical or industry and how they combine to make a difference. Alex, I think we could be the whole afternoon, well, maybe the whole morning in America, right, talking, but we're running out of time. So what I would do is to share the last question that we have from our
Okay.
audience, okay?
Okay.
And with that, we'll have to finish. And it's somehow, well, maybe not that easy question because it's about web number 3. Just, out of the curiosity of the audience, let's say that web number 1 was the first website, right? The first internet that was one way, one direction, right? So it was this kind of website in which you could find information, but you could not interact with, right? Web number 2 was this by bidirectional internet, was still very centralized. So it was owned, it is owned, now we are in the era of web number 2, it is owned by the big tech companies, especially in the western side of the US and maybe a bit also in Asia, in China, right? So it's Google, it's Amazon, it's Meta, and so on. They're owning most of the data that we download in the internet, but it's interactive. So we as individuals can interact with, right? And we can also provide likes and we can somehow be empowered and so on. While web number 3 was supposed to be the best, to take the best things of web number 1 and web number 2, right? So on the one hand, is supposed to be a more distributed internet. So actually, it's the individual, it's the owner of the internet in a small share, but we are somehow individuals, of course, leveraging blockchain technologies. But on the other hand, is interactive, so we can interact also with this internet, right? There's some literature about linking web number 3 with metaverse, which I think is not a request for web number 3, but when we had the hype of, remember, of metaverse, and with web number 3, I think we were mixing things. I think you can have web number 3 without metaverse. But the question is about web number 3 or even blockchain, I would say, in healthcare. Do you have any example or rings you a bell about how web number 3 could make the difference in healthcare?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think that was a great description. I for a second had forgotten what web number 2 was. But yeah. Okay. So when I think this, I am thinking mostly blockchain, and I know that like the technical definition of web 3 is kind of what you talked about, but for the sake of argument and speed, we're going to talk about blockchain and healthcare. And I'm not going to invent anything. I'm going to say things that are already happening, right? So one of the main things that's occurring right now is health records and how they're being managed, right? And how private they are and who has them and how they get moved around, the logistics of it. This is a one-click solve if obviously we're able to integrate all these things onto the blockchain, right? Because right now there's a huge issue of people having all this. A lot of people's health information gets lost. If you go to one doctor here at this hospital, and then you get I don't know, given a pill at this other doctor at this hospital, if you're not sometimes the one bringing the papers, that information isn't being shared, right? Some countries have this a lot more better.
No.
There's some European countries.
Especially in the private sector. Curiously,
Yeah,
in this case, the public sector works better than
yeah.
the private in order to merge all the information and bring all the information together.
Completely. And so in a lot of ways, right, this is like a huge problem that exists in many countries. Some countries not. There's definitely some European countries that I won't name by name that are doing it really well. But for me, that's one of the ones, right, is like this interoperability of everything being everywhere, right? And the fact that everything is traceable means that if the right security is put in, you're going to know only a certain amount of people are going to have access to your information, but you're always going to know who had access to that information. And I think that's super interesting, right? And so then if we're moving on to much more specific, like, so as the future evolves, I'll take that example of the 23andMe, right? The genetic test. Right now, me knowing your genetic code is pretty much useless for me. But I'm going to assume that in 50 years, knowing somebody's genetic code is huge, right? Because the amount of information that we're going to be able to gather from somebody's genetic code that people are just giving to the internet kind of willy-nilly is going to be huge, right? So now if you have my 23andMe, then you can't know much. But in 50 years, it's like if I gave you the access to my phone and access to my Facebook and access to my Gmail, right? In one way or another, it's giving you access to everything. So the idea that we can integrate this with the blockchain and make it like very democratized and very transparent and like very secure, for me is something that could be really interesting.
Alex, it is amazing listening you speaking about innovation, about transformation, about the future. We missed some topics, right? I would like to, maybe next time, we'll invite you next time and we will talk about your entrepreneurship experience. I know that recently you made an exit, right, of your startup that you founded, and it was some sort of an e-commerce, but also working in deep tech and in healthcare. And then you exit recently. So I hope that you are looking now for new challenges to solve, right? So far, I would like to say thank you very much to share your time with us, with BTS community. It was amazing. We enjoyed a lot. I think I'm sharing also the opinion of all the audience. And have a good afternoon there in the US. Take care, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was a pleasure. I wish I could have seen everybody's faces, but I was really happy to share with you, happy to come back. And thank you so much for the wonderful questions from everybody and from you, Jordi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Bye-bye.
Adeu.